Story 1. Health, fitness, and nutrition. The number of scammers and charlatans is astonishing. The fundamentals do not sell, so people resort to fear tactics and engage in extreme actions to try and distinguish themselves from the competition. Story 2. While people may know about timeshares, there are also timeshare exit companies that are scams. Story 3. The supplement industry in the United States is largely unregulated and can contain almost anything that has not been proven to be harmful. As long as supplements do not claim to treat or prevent any illness, they can be sold without oversight from the Food and Drug Administration. People spend hundreds or thousands of dollars a year on products that are ineffective at best. Story 4. Sports gambling is a detrimental industry. It infiltrates sports by bribing politicians and executives. The advertising is pervasive, appearing in every sport, televised game, and podcast. Even small, lesser-known YouTube channels receive sponsorships in nearly every video. The fundamental premise is to deceive people out of their money by promising high returns that are rarely realized. The goal is to turn individuals into gambling addicts, as they become the most lucrative customers. Meanwhile, little is done to assist those affected by this addiction. Sports gambling is harmful. The industry does not deserve recognition. It is theirs, not yours. Story 5. The entire wedding industry is inflated in every aspect. From the high flower prices to the excessive food costs, you often have to pay hundreds of dollars per seat just to reserve an empty hall. Want chairs? That's an additional cost. Every element carries a price increase of around 400% simply because it is associated with the term wedding. Story 6. Data brokerage is well known, but many people are less aware of the extensive network of data brokers who buy, sell, and aggregate personal information. Story 7. Not many people know about the rehabilitation industry, especially in Florida, and how much of it is fraudulent, acting as a front for trafficking, and lacking genuine goals of helping individuals with addictions achieve recovery. Story 8. The transport industry in adolescent mental health and substance use involves hiring individuals to take a child to rehabilitation against their will. Parents hiring strangers to remove their own child can lead to serious consequences. Story 9. The bar business. My wife and I are good people who bought a bar to run as a small business for a couple of years before we got out. Nearly every vendor, band, and other bar owners were either dishonest or just difficult to deal with. It's mostly an industry full of people looking to take advantage of its low-paid tipped employees while charging the public inflated prices for drinks. I always tell my wife that we were just too ethical and moral to run a bar. You almost have to be unscrupulous, and if you're not when you start, you will be by the end. Story 10. I have never been a fan of viatical settlements. Individuals with terminal illnesses sell their insurance policy to a third party. They receive more than what the insurance company would pay for cashing it in, but less than the death benefit. The third party assumes the payments and then gets the full death benefit when the individual dies. Life settlements operate similarly, but the seller is typically an elderly person, not necessarily someone with a medically determined lifespan. Someone in my ex's family presented it to me as a great business opportunity, and I never looked at them the same way again. Story 11. International call centers use fake phone numbers to offer temporary jobs. No one would answer if the actual country of origin were displayed, so they establish a vacant office and route the calls through it to collect a portion of the pay, which is much more lucrative due to the exchange rate. This practice takes business away from legitimate local recruiters and temporary agencies while routing money directly from workers to other countries. Story 12. I'm not sure if people realize how unsanitary most restaurants are. While some decent places do exist, chances are you are probably eating poorly stored microwave food cooked in an unclean kitchen by an overworked employee who is not given any incentive to care. This observation comes from my 15 years in the industry. Story 13. Homeopathic medicine has become increasingly pervasive and predatory. One of my in-laws has been banned from our local hospital for attempting to persuade patients to terminate their medical treatments in favor of her ineffective cures. Story 14. Surplus funds recovery agents. Many people are unaware of what these agents do. If your mortgage is foreclosed, the mortgage holder sells your property. If they receive more money than you owed, that surplus is yours. However, the mortgage holder is not obligated to inform you, especially since most people vacating a property do not think to leave a forwarding address. As a result, that surplus remains unclaimed, waiting for you to file the necessary paperwork to claim it. The paperwork is usually manageable, and there are free services available as well as a few commercial companies that specialize in this area. One notable company is National Equity Associates, which charges reasonable fees of 5 to 10% for their services. However, there are also many unscrupulous individuals in this business who research foreclosed properties and foreclosure sales. They send legally worded letters that may appear to come from government agencies or law firms, offering to help you claim these surplus funds, but often at exorbitant fees exceeding 35%. This is for paperwork that individuals can typically complete themselves, all while claiming to be helping unfortunate homeowners. Personally, I have never experienced a foreclosure, and it is unlikely that I ever will. However, friends who have gone through the process have shown me the numerous outrageous offers they received from this questionable industry. Story 15. Surrogacy, especially when it is allowed for foreigners, involves significant concerns regarding human trafficking, such as the recent case of Thai women being exploited in an egg farm in Georgia. Story 16. Chiropractors are often considered controversial. The practice has roots that some compare to those of certain cults, including Scientology. There was a legal battle surrounding its origins, but the specifics are unclear to me. Perhaps someone else can provide more information. Story 17. Educational testing is a significant aspect of the education system. Standardized tests that students are required to take can often seem pointless and contribute to a billion-dollar industry. While my state has a strong teachers' union, it is concerning that a testing company has significant influence within the union. Story 18. The tire business appears questionable. It has high profit margins. The owners are continually acquiring new locations. It is a business that is hard to understand in terms of its success. Story 19. Towing companies for large trucks often own extensive stretches of highway and are typically linked to or questionably financially associated with local law enforcement, facing minimal regulatory oversight regarding their pricing. I once encountered a bill of $500 for the use of a pallet jack in addition to hourly labor, even though pallet jacks cost around $400, allowing them to profit significantly with each use, as these tools have a long lifespan. They can legally hold or sell your goods from a tow trailer if payment is delayed, usually within 30 to 90 days. While this time frame seems reasonable, it complicates matters as it involves the truck owner, their insurance, an insurance adjuster, the cargo owner and their insurance, and the shipping company and their insurance, which can take months to resolve. If the cargo is valuable or has a tight deadline, you face significant pressure to pay a towing bill that could reach $30,000 to $50,000 in cases of severe accidents. The container chassis industry in the United States has also changed significantly. Previously, trucking companies owned their chassis until steamship lines opted to provide their own. In the early 2000s, with the rise of chassis pools, ocean lines largely divested from chassis ownership, transferring control to private equity. Now, there are numerous private fleets, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic exerted considerable pressure on these pools. If a chassis is unavailable, the beneficial cargo owner ends up shouldering the demurrage costs. Retrieving funds from ports or ocean lines due to chassis unavailability proves nearly impossible. In some cases, even when chassis are out, port or rail authorities impose exorbitant fees if a private chassis is introduced. The Biden administration attempted to address some of these issues with the Ocean Shipping Reform Act. However, chassis companies largely remain privately held, and in several ports, they effectively maintain a monopoly. Story 20. I'm surprised I haven't seen insurance sales here, specifically the predatory permanent life insurance and annuity sales representatives, such as MassMutual, New York Life, and Northwestern Mutual. Story 21. Until we pull our heads out of ignorance, stop falling for the ruling class's lies, fighting and blaming each other, and instead rise up in revolt against the ruling class, everything in our current economic system is questionable and designed to extract wealth from working class people and make the billionaire class wealthier. Story 22. Window shades and accessories are projected to be worth $6.78 billion in 2024, with anticipated growth in the coming years. Story 23 Medicine. Doctors may add extra billing lines to increase revenue if your insurance does not reimburse them what they consider a sufficient amount for the visit. Check those billing codes and explanation of benefits. Story 24. Internet service provider data collection tends to result in higher service fees over time, while they profit from your internet activity. The main concern is privacy. It feels like living in a glass house where you pay them to watch you and share your secrets. Story 25. I work in technology for the ultra-wealthy in Los Angeles. Let me assure you, with enough money, there is an entire world available to the rich that cannot be underestimated. Any service or anything you ever need, you can always obtain. And I truly mean anything. Story 26. Customer care companies. Instead of having in-house customer service, U.S. corporations pay companies like Aegis and Alorica. They pay a fraction of the cost to staff overseas call centers, where live representatives read from a script. These jobs used to be stable and located in the U.S. In college, I worked at one and was paid a good wage with benefits. The positions started to be cut as international calling became more affordable. Soon, the entire operation was moved to India. Now, the only ones making money are the representatives who sell those contracts or hold positions on the board. Story 27. Merchant cash advance companies are known for providing short-term business funding, but they do not act as traditional lenders. Instead of offering a loan, they purchase rights to your future receivables, meaning the money owed to you. By structuring it this way, they may avoid usury laws, resulting in extremely high payback terms. For example, they can charge an effective annual percentage rate exceeding 800% with very short payback periods, often just a few months. There are various options available in this space, and in specific circumstances, it may make sense for a business to utilize them. However, business owners can often end up at a disadvantage. Some may stack these advances, taking out more contracts to pay off existing ones. Not all companies are equal. While some are relatively straightforward, others can be quite predatory. Some companies may intercept credit card transactions to redirect payments, approach clients to claim debts owed to the borrower, and, in extreme cases, resort to intimidation tactics. While it is important not to label all companies as unethical, many practices within this industry are indeed questionable. Story 28. Nurse practitioner schools vary in quality, with many being diploma mills. Approximately 1 in 7 nurse practitioners graduate from institutions formerly owned by DeVry. These schools often do not secure clinical placements for students, forcing them to send mass emails to healthcare professionals in search of clinical experiences. There is minimal standardization. The program typically lasts 2 years and only requires 600 clinical hours, amounting to about 3 months of full-time experience, which may only involve shadowing another professional. A significant concern is that these schools prioritize online education to maximize student enrollment and tuition revenue. Additionally, many individuals seek the quickest and easiest route to legally practice as nurse practitioners, which raises concerns among physicians about the high number of inadequately trained practitioners in the field. Story 29. Logistics, particularly in the truckload market, faces significant challenges such as fraud, theft, and extortion. It is important to note that this situation is occurring in the United States, not in a foreign country. Story 30. Realtors. We were looking for a house in Phoenix, and I noticed that the house lacked air conditioning. I mentioned it to the realtor, who informed me that we didn't need it because the house had overhead fans. Story 31. The credit score system is widely recognized, yet most people do not fully understand its complexities. Credit scores are determined by private companies using proprietary algorithms, which are shielded from government scrutiny under trade secret protections. As a result, no one truly knows how credit scores function. We have, through trial and error, discovered some factors. For instance, making regular payments can boost your credit score, while missed payments or defaulting on debts can cause it to drop. However, there are oddities such as completely paying off a long-standing debt like a car loan, which can actually lower your credit score. I have a theory about why this occurs, But since the algorithms are proprietary, there is no way to confirm it. This gives credit companies the ability to alter their algorithms and criteria at any time. The original intention of credit scores was to create a fair, universal, and unbiased system to combat redlining and prevent racism from affecting people's ability to access loans. However, there is no evidence that this goal is being achieved. For instance, an algorithm could be programmed to lower credit scores for individuals from low-income postal codes, essentially amounting to redlining, or to reduce scores based on specific ethnic names, which would introduce systemic bias. There would be no way for anyone to know if such biases exist, and even if suspected, proving them would be nearly impossible. To breach trade secrets in a legal context, one must demonstrate reasonable cause to believe wrongdoing is occurring. Yet, if no one understands precisely how credit scores are calculated, how can one prove that a particular issue is the cause, rather than an unaccounted-for factor? Story 32. There are companies that will buy your debt and, as a favor, ask you to pay them back with a fee. To acquire your information and contact you, they will search social media and may harass your family until they obtain your number. Story 33. The funeral industry often takes advantage of people by selling overpriced services and products intended for burial or cremation. Story 34. The music industry has become a means for laundering and transferring over $10 billion of mostly drug money each year, largely due to a mix of online streaming platforms not implementing proper know-your-customer procedures, advertising practices, cryptocurrency, and bot farms. Story 35. Law enforcement agencies are investigating underage prostitution gangs in Arvada and KCK. The state does not investigate police officers. Story 36. The Economist has published extensive reporting on the scam industry, including pig butchering, cryptocurrency scams, and romance fraud. Most people are aware that scams exist, but few realize the scale and prevalence of this industry. Story 37. Farmers markets. Many people buy produce from grocery stores, mark up the price, and sell it as organic and locally produced. Story 38. Produce industry. Grocery stores will reject trucks to avoid paying full price for perfectly fine goods. The farmer does not get paid, and the middleman receives a partial payment while the same produce is sold in the store that rejected it. Story 39. Designer dog breeds are a topic of concern. Many people think about puppy mills, which are undoubtedly detrimental, but designer breeds often cost more than purebreds, despite lacking health testing. This practice primarily aims to generate profit. For example, a Labradoodle is 50% Labrador Retriever, and there is no guarantee it will be hypoallergenic. Similarly, it is impossible to guarantee that every child of one Caucasian and one African American parent will have blonde straight hair. Such guarantees are simply unattainable. Story 40. The pharmaceutical industry likely has every company in that sector found guilty of actions such as hiding side effects and altering studies. How a drug company is allowed to continue operating after being found guilty is beyond my comprehension. Story 41. Timeshare exit companies promise to help people exit unfavorable contracts, but many simply take their money and disappear. Story 42. Elder care, particularly hospice and nursing homes, often lacks dignity in one's final days. Honorable mentions include childcare, homeschooling, troubled teens, and drug rehabilitation, as well as most industries involving the care of vulnerable populations. Story 43. Family court attorneys are the most unpleasant group of people I have ever encountered. They lack a sense of truth or justice and are primarily focused on their payment. Story 44. It's not the same as it used to be with digital tickets, but the ticket brokers I have dealt with were very untrustworthy. Story 45. Career and life coaching involves individuals who support others in their personal growth and development. Story 46. No-kill dog shelters. A dog is sold, but the family is misled. The dog bites the children and nearly injures everyone. The father nearly relinquishes the dog, but the family objects, fearing repercussions from the dog church. They return the dog to the seller, who then loses the dog before the officer humanely ends its life. The dog then reappears under a new name in another community, accompanied by new falsehoods for a different family. Repeat this process and collect $50 for each rehoming incident. Story 47. Elevator maintenance. Elevator service technicians have a route, which may consist of 50 hours of work sold to the building owners each week. However, the technician only works 40 hours. As long as there are no issues, building owners typically do not realize that they are paying for 2 hours of service each week that are not being utilized. I was an elevator constructor employed by one of the major companies and was a member of the National Union. Story 48. Waste management and chop shops often involve cash transactions, making it easy to launder money or engage in illicit activities. Story 49. Small business acquisition coaching and seminars are becoming increasingly common on platforms like YouTube, often resembling a new get-rich-quick scheme. When a content creator claims that buying a business is easy with other people's money or through 100% seller financing, they are likely misleading you most of the time. The next step typically involves a costly seminar or training program. If someone had truly discovered the secret to acquiring profitable businesses with no down payment, they would not be sharing it online. In reality, only a very small percentage of businesses are sold without any cash coming from the buyer. When such transactions occur, it often indicates that the business is struggling or carries issues that make a cash-down acquisition unfeasible, or it may simply be overpriced. Story 50. Amazon third-party sellers. Look extremely closely next time you buy something from Amazon. If it doesn't say shipped from and sold by Amazon, it's most likely a scam. Story 51. I will go first. The signage industry. I have heard of signage companies that do very poor work and do not pay their workers. The list goes on. Story 52. Cruise ships and the inhumane exploitation of workers profit from paying them very little while harming the environment. Story 53. Plantation weddings often receive backlash, but it seems to be overlooked. It is deeply unsettling to hold a wedding at a plantation, a site where enslaved individuals suffered and endured horrific abuses. Plantations should serve as education centers about slavery, rather than as venues for weddings. Just as we would not hold weddings at former concentration camps, it is inappropriate to celebrate marriage at such historically significant and painful locations. Story 54. REO inspections. Did you know that if you are ever late on a mortgage payment, the bank will immediately send a field inspector to photograph your home and occupancy status without your knowledge? Story 55. Counter-Strike skin trades involve numerous bad actors, and many of these transactions resemble gambling activities targeted at children. Story 56. Trucking industry. When I was a kid, my dad told me that when you are a truck driver, you are halfway in jail. Now, years later, after working as a truck driver, I realize he was right. Story 57. For everyone discussing the wellness industry, check out Mallory on social media and the Conspirituality podcast. You won't be disappointed. Story 58. Flavors contain various chemicals and extracts, but the only requirements for labeling are natural flavor or artificial flavor. Story 59. Restaurants, if you have never worked in the back of house, can involve black market dealings. What separates questionable restaurants from reputable ones is whether the owner or the chef initiated these dealings, such as drugs, firearms, stolen cars, or prostitution. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.